Good morning, YouTube. This is your buddy Chapadong coming at you again with another slate breakdown. This is March 21st. We have an 11-game slate tonight, which is absolutely huge. A couple of things. I'm going to have to fly. I probably won't get into a lot of player type stuff tonight. It's mostly just going to be games and targets. On top of that, my kids are home for spring break, so if you hear a lot of noise in the background, you just have to deal with it because I'm on my notorious Smalabada status in the DFS world. I do not have a soundproof studio, so yeehaw. We get to hit the ground running. Let's dive in. Pittsburgh and Buffalo, that over-under is a 6. It's a game we obviously are going to be targeting tonight. Pittsburgh carrying the 180 favorite. They are 7-2-1. In their last 10 starts, they've won the last 2. They're on back-to-back wins. This game is just going to be full of activity. Both teams shoot a lot. Both teams allow a lot of shots on goal. Should be some up and down action. In terms of point scoring fantasy-wise over the last 4 weeks, Pittsburgh ranks 2nd and Buffalo ranks 10th. So you've got two top 10 teams going at each other in terms of fantasy points scored. Pittsburgh's defense is trending a little bit better in the past 4 weeks or so. Their ranking is down from up into the middle of the pack, getting back down to lower third. So it may suppress Buffalo just a little bit. However, Buffalo's defense is still a top 10 defense as far as allowing fantasy points. So Pittsburgh's a good spot to target tonight. As far as the goalies are concerned, Lanner's playing a little bit better. He's won his last 2 starts. And Murray is 4-1 in his last 5. But, of course, he allows a lot of goals against. So he's not really a shutout candidate. This game should feature some goals, in other words. And we want to get both sides of that as evidenced by the over-under of a 6. When you look over at New York and New Jersey, that over-under is a 5, but this one's a really, really weird one. You would think, oh, no, that's not a very good game. But when I looked at both of these goalies' records, their game logs are just littered with 3 and 4 goal performances against. So that kind of lends me to think that this game might have some sneaky potential to it, to anybody with the balls to dip in there. New Jersey's reeling. I mean, they're what? They won 8-2 in their last 10. They've lost back-to-back games. They give up fantasy points. They're now a top 10 soft team in that category. Have been for a while. That's not really good for what used to be such a defensive oriented team. But when I look again at the game logs, what I focus on, what really stuck out to me was these goalies tend to give up goals against 3 and 4 to clip. So I might have a couple. If you really wanted to be ballsy, you stack this game and throw it in a huge GPP where you need to be absolutely unique to win it. Would be really weird. It might happen. I mean, I don't know that it will, but because the numbers don't really jive as far as shots on goal and fantasy points allowed and all that stuff. But when I look at those goalies, it seems that they let in some soft ones. Calgary and Washington, another 5 over-under. Here's why. Washington lately has not been good. They haven't been scoring a lot of fantasy points for themselves, and they are a defensive team, so they don't give up a lot. So they've kind of turned into what maybe New Jersey was. However, they have been trending up a little bit lately, and that's good. So maybe they're coming back around. They can explode with anybody. It's getting close to playoff time. They might be turning on the Jets a little bit here. When I look at Calgary's 9-1 in their last 10 games. They've won 2 in a row. Brian Elliott's the hottest goalie in hockey right now. If you look at his recent performances, he's won his last 10 starts in a row, 10 plus. I didn't go back beyond 10, but it might be 11 or 12. That's pretty freaking hot, and he's got 9 games with under 2 goals allowed. I don't like that going up against Washington, but it tells you how hot he is. That streak may end. They've got Washington in a minus 180 favorite. I don't really know why. That's confusing to me, as hot as he's been. Now, Calgary does allow shots, though. They allow, kind of middle of the pack in terms of shots on goal. So you got yourself a good chance, at getting a goalie here who's performing really, really well. He would be a GPP goalie because Washington still scares me a little bit with their potential. But Washington, again, 5-4-1. They're basically a 500 team over the last month or so. That's not great. And Holtby, remember we were talking about him a couple of weeks ago as being just the hottest thing going. He has allowed 3 goals against or more in every start since March 6th, so going back a few weeks. That's not so good. If we run over to Ottawa and Boston, not a lot to say about this game except that Kubitin is expected to start. He's won his last 4 starts, by the way. And Boston is on a back-to-back. at home tonight. And, of course, Ottawa's lost 4 in a row. So whatever you want to do here, there may be some value in here, although these guys, Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak, their prices are creeping up a little bit. You may want to dodge that game tonight. You may want pieces of it. It's totally up to you. This is the game I'm a little bit more focused on, another 5 over under. But look at this, minus 250 for Montreal. That's jumped just since I started doing my research today. It was a minus 230 a little while ago. Carey Price is an interesting target tonight. He's 8-2 in his last 10, and 6 of those games he's allowed 1 goal. That's pretty big. Not allowing 2 goals is huge. Detroit is on a back-to-back, a road back-to-back. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10, so they're ripe for the picking. Montreal's turned it up a notch. They're up to now 16th in fantasy points scored in the last 4 weeks, whereas before they were in the 20s, 25, 26. We were complaining. I was complaining. When are they going to get hot? When are they going to get hot? Well, now they're starting to heat up. They are getting hot. It's time to jump on the bandwagon and start rostering up some Canadians. They're 8-2 as a team in their last 10 starts, and they've won back-to-back games. I love Montreal tonight. Arizona and Tampa Bay. Arizona's lost 3 in a row. There really isn't much to say. They're on a road back-to-back. Tampa Bay isn't great. I don't see them taking huge advantage of this tonight, so meh. And I'm moving on a big slate. Carolina and Florida, kind of another one, other than the fact that Carolina's been scoring points lately, been shooting the puck a lot lately. They're in a decent position there, and Florida has been allowing a ton of fantasy points lately. So Carolina's in a good spot, kind of a secondary, borderline primary offense for me. But Cam Ward sucks. Cam Ward allows goals. He's got, 1 2-goal game in his last 10? That's it. Everything's been 3 or more. So Florida might score some goals tonight. I can't really see which way it's going to go. It's not a game I'm going to be targeting necessarily, but there should be something there. But on a bigger slate, I just think we have better opportunities elsewhere, which means these go to GPPs because you're taking a little bit more of a risk maybe since it's a cloudy future. Philadelphia and Winnipeg, another one of those games that's just kind of meh. It's a 6 over under, which should excite people. But, neither team is playing great lately. Neither team is playing horrible lately. They're just kind of 500 teams, a little up and down. Philly is shooting pucks on the net. Winnipeg is allowing them. However, they're not really scoring a ton of fantasy points. They're kind of average to middle of the pack, although Winnipeg is allowing a ton of points against. Winnipeg is your most powerful offense right now over the last 4 weeks. Winnipeg is ranked number 1 in fantasy scoring, and Philadelphia's kind of mediocre defense. So maybe that's what they see in the total of the 6 is a mediocre offense going against a defense in Winnipeg that allows a ton of points versus a powerful offense in Winnipeg going against a mediocre defense, and so they're predicting shootout. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know that they would be my favorite offense on the night, but they certainly would be a game I would dip into to grab a player or two, certainly before I came over here to the Carolina-Florida game. Vancouver and Chicago, this is your chalk. Chicago's chalk up and down the board. Crawford's probably your chalk goalie. They're certainly your chalk offense. When it comes to Vancouver, they're 2-5-3 in they've lost their last 6 games, and God, the goalie 1-9 in his last 10 games. Absolutely horrid goals against for Ryan Miller. It's really bad in Vancouver. And Chicago's the exact opposite. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've won their last 5 starts, and Corey Crawford is 7-3 in his last 10 starts. He's not elite. He allows goals. He's not a shutout candidate, but he's probably gonna get the win. When you look at the fantasy points scored, you'll see why. In terms of shooting pucks on net, Chicago ranks 4th. Vancouver allows the most shots on goal. Advantage Chicago. In terms of points scored, like I said before, 3rd is where Chicago ranks in fantasy points scored. 3rd most powerful offense, and Vancouver gives up the most fantasy points. Advantage Chicago. That's the biggest flashing bright green light you can possibly get for a team. So if you wanted to just stack Chicago and run away from the slate tonight, it's probably your safest bet. It's probably one of the better things that you can do. There's really not a ton more to say about that game other than get off of Vancouver and get on Chicago. It's not even a spot where you want to be contrarian and load up Vancouver on the just-in-case thing, because on an 11-game slate, you could run all the way down to that's where you might do the Florida or something like that, is just to, but don't reach for Vancouver. It's just not smart. San Jose and Minnesota. San Jose's lost its last 3. Minnesota's lost its last 5. both these teams. Who knows what the hell's going on? They've been powerful offenses before. They've been solid defenses before. This is one of those games that's really just kind of confusing. Jones has been fine for San Jose, but his skaters aren't offering him support. It's kind of like the same thing that the LA Kings are going through. And Dubnyk has just not been good. His game log was littered with 3 and 4 goal performances. He's been up and down a little bit. You don't know what you're going to get out of the guy. And right now, defensively, Minnesota's allowing just a crap load of points against. They're still scoring some points, but they're allowing a crap load against. But being that these two teams try to be defensive in nature, I would suspect that this is the type of game that is going to not be one of our elite picks, for the night. We'd like to see a couple of offenses rolling better than these two are right now. Final game of the night, St. Louis and Colorado. St. Louis 7-3, last 10. They've won back-to-back games. They're a minus 195 favorite. Jake Allen has been surprisingly good. If he's under the radar for you, they've had some tough matchups. And St. Louis's schedule gets really, really easy the rest of the season. I can say that as a Blues fan, so pay attention. If they could just score some goals, man, and get some of these top two liners going, Jake Allen and Carter Hutton have been absolutely pulling their weight. Jake Hutton's 5-1 in his last 6 games, and he's got 2 shutouts in those last 6. So this is a good candidate tonight. It's not going to maybe be the top pick because of your minus 300, your minus 200s, but this is a good safe goalie. St. Louis does not allow a lot of shots on goal, and Colorado doesn't really shoot a lot. Colorado's dead last at fantasy scoring in the league, so they're not really a threat to really blow up. The last game out, St. Louis snapped their 5-game streak by beating Colorado as well. So St. Louis is no juggernaut offensively, though, so it's not really a place I'd target skaters, but this is a good, safe goalie tonight. It really is. If I had to target my games tonight, I would tell you I really like Pittsburgh tonight. I really like Montreal tonight. I really like Chicago tonight. Certainly, Chicago's way up top. Those are probably the 3 offenses I would like to target if I can. The secondary offenses that if I could get into them, I would look at Boston. I would look at Buffalo. I might look at Calgary. I would probably look at Carolina maybe. I would look at Winnipeg. And it's just, that's about it. You really don't need to go crazy with these. I wouldn't take a bunch of one-offs. I would try to stack up a little bit of production out of Chicago. And I wouldn't mind stacking for cash even, mini stacks, 2 players, maybe 3, for Chicago, Montreal, and Pittsburgh if I could afford it. And I might counter that with, like I said, a little bit of Boston, a little bit of Buffalo, some Carolina, Winnipeg, teams like that. What I will say is I'm not mentioning New York Rangers and New Jersey a lot, but I really do believe there's some sneaky shootout potential there based on the goalies' track records for GPPs that you could really load up and really surprise a lot of people. If that game ended up being the higher scoring game of the night because these others were lopsided or these others fell flat, you'd have something that nobody else saw coming. So you'd load up like a Jake Allen or somebody that can get you a shutout and then just stack that game and then take 1-offs and 2-offs to get exposure from Pittsburgh, get exposure from whatever. You'd have a very unique team. It would be very long shot, high risk, but it could be a potentially high reward type of tournament or lineup that could win when it comes to 10, 20, 25,000 hockey players. If you're playing a smaller GPP like I do, 1,000, 1,200, 2,000, 3,000 people, you don't need that kind of wackadoodle stuff to win. You can stay with Chicago, you can stay with whatever, and then take Jake Allen and take a one-off, out of somewhere else that's in not quite as good a spot. Like take, somewhere from, say, Montreal might be enough to load you up, but then take your one-off or mini stack out of Carolina. And that alone is going to be enough to differentiate you from the rest of the crowd. You just don't need to get different in 5, 6, 7 spots. You can be very chalky, and if the chalk goes like it's supposed to, then you can load up, you hit your one-off or your 2 little one-offs elsewhere, and that's how you win those 1 and 2,000 player GPPs. Anyway, check out the description of the player tab below. I am Chapadong. You can follow me on Twitter at Chapadong. In the description tab, you'll find a link to the DFS Army. DFSArmy.com is obviously where I reside. It's where I'm a coach and contributor. It's where we have coaches on all levels for all sports. If you're interested in becoming a serious fantasy player, I encourage you to check it out, read our content, and join the DFS army and come chat with us when we've got more time than 15 minutes to explain things. Peace out, guys.